Good evening and welcome to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliathambi. We in Sri Lanka have learnt a lot of lessons this past week or so, but one valuable lesson that we have learned is that the whole world is supporting us. We are not alone. There's been such an outpouring of support from foreign governments, from our friends overseas, and international organizations which have been on the ground from day one. And one of these organizations is the International Organization for Migration, IOM, which is, of course, a very critical arm of the United Nations. And I'm privileged to have with me this evening Ms. Kristin Parco. She is the Chief of Mission of IOM for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, and she is with us here tonight. Kristin, thank you and welcome to Face.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so Kristin, tell us something about the IOM and how it operates globally and also how it's been operating in Sri Lanka over the years.
Well, thank you so much, Niresh, for having me here tonight at Face to Face. And I really look forward for this almost 1 hour of conversation with you. But first, let me tell you about IOM. So IOM was established in 1951, just after the Second War. So we supported on this, million of displaced people to resettle. And today we are an IOM UN migration agency, a leading migration agency, and we have 175 members with 8 observers. Our strategy is to save lives, provide solutions to displacement, and also addressing pathways for regular migration. In Sri Lanka, we established our presence here in 2002. This is just after the Gulf War, where there were 95,000 migrant workers that had to return home here in Sri Lanka. Also, these are major crises that we have supported along the years. And then we were also here supporting the government of Sri Lanka during the 2004 tsunami.
The 2004
tsunami. So we help in rebuilding, the impacts of tsunami. We responded during the life-saving aspect of tsunami. So we were here for many years. So over the decade, for more than 20 years, we have partnered with the government of Sri Lanka in terms of strengthening, the rights of migrant workers. But at the same time, one of our core work is on humanitarian assistance. Today, we are present also within 24 hours, responding to the affected areas in Sri Lanka during the cyclone. And also we have a sub offices in the northeast in Jaffna, Batikolo, and Kilinochchi.
Right, so you're pretty much island wide, and the IOM is very well versed with Sri Lanka. It's not a strange land at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you're used to operating here.
Mm-hmm.
And you yourself have been here about 1.5 years,
Yes.
I believe. So you're used to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And you've operated personally yourself. You've been working in so many other countries in South Asia and Southeast Asia.
And the Caribbean.
And the Caribbean as well. So so you're used to dealing with these disaster situations. Tell us, when this particular cyclone struck, how did your operations commence? Because I think even before it struck, you were preparing for it perhaps a day or two in advance.
Mm-hmm. Just to give you a quick story of the preparedness that we did, I have a Zoom Earth map, and I usually monitor the weather. And 3 days before I was informed that there is a depression happening, I already called in my team and said, we have to prepare. There is something, you know, within the area of Sri Lanka of a lurking depression. So I said to them that the preparedness is important instead of us being chaotic when there is already something going on. So mobilize our team to prepare what stocks do we have, what are the areas that the possible, you know, this depression, the effects will pass through. We mobilized our team, provided already briefing that in the next 24 hours, if there are access, this is where you will go to. So those were the preparedness that we did. That's why 24 hours after the impact of the cyclone, we were able to mobilize our team together with the military to access Kandy.
Right. And you work hand in glove with the military, the disaster management center,
yes,
and so on.
Yes. So basically, very strong response effort from the military by DMC. So we've worked and coordinated hand in hand with DMC and as well as with the military in looking at and identifying which is the area that we will be able to respond immediately, because these are the most affected area. So we had a team mobilized with DMC to work with them. We were calling in the support of the military of how we can be able to, you know, join with them in terms of accessing Kandy as one of the most affected area. But also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was also a crucial point of contact in terms of coordination, given that as a United Nations and international community, they were also critical in providing us, you know, information on how we can be able to support them in this critical time of life-saving response in those affected areas.
Right. And so you were on the ground from the very beginning, and you also have this global network, IOM, and of course the other agencies of the UN. So you were able to call upon those resources very quickly, weren't you?
Yes. I think first is IOM is a global lead for non-food items, shelter, and also camp management. And IOM's expertise and capacities globally, we were able to immediately deploy our search team to support us, to be here in Sri Lanka, to be able to, you know, to respond to those affected areas. So within 48 hours, we have already our search team coming from the nearby countries in supporting us in coordination, supporting us on non-food items and procuring, you know, shelter kits and non-food items. So it was very easy for us to be able to respond immediately, given that of our global expertise and capacity.
Okay, and now the IOM is in it for the long run, isn't it? You're not going to sort of be here for a week or two and then you know, pack up and your teams are not going to go away. How long will you be engaged in this?
Two things. Humanitarian, we are here as long as, you know, we are needed to support in responding to the affected community, specifically the most critical part of the life-saving, which is 3 months. But we are already working together with the government of Sri Lanka in terms of the recovery and rebuilding efforts. So building back better Sri Lanka. So we are here until Sri Lanka needs us.
Building back better, that sounds very enticing and apt for us, because yes, we don't just need to build back to what we were, but build it better, as it were. And now your teams have also been carrying out various assessments as they go out. What have you heard from them? What are the critical requirements? What are the insights?
So our team who went to Kandy within after the 24 hours of the impact of the cyclone has seen a lot of needs. needs in terms of support to pregnant women, to elderly, to children that are in the safety centers, those that have lost their lives, lost their livelihoods, and also relatives and friends that were missing or were or have lost their lives. Our health team was able to also support in terms of providing them immediate healthcare treatment, first aid treatment to those that have been wounded or, had issues with regards to health. What I have seen in my visit to these evacuation centers or safety centers was that they have lost everything, and that their main challenge right now is when they return home, which home they would return to. For those that their house are partially damaged, they said that we've lost everything: identity, appliances, beds, books of children, everything. So they said, like, how do we rebuild back our lives? Many of them also are dependent on agricultural work. Some of them are daily workers. And so it has impacted their sense of where to get their livelihood when they're going back to their homes. For me, what is very important is to look into what kind of essential services that we can provide to the most vulnerable population while they are in the safety center. For example, access to health, access to protection, access to shelter items, that when they return home, they have some items that they can start rebuilding those homes that are partially affected. But also the most important thing is the issue in terms of housing. Where will they be located? Specifically, that if their land or house that they've put in is no longer the right zone for them, or the right house that they have to build, where will they be relocated?
So relocation.
Relocation is also an important thing.
Especially in the landslide areas. Yes. So the land may not be even recognizable now.
Yes.
And also the flood-prone areas. So there needs to be an assessment as to whether people should go back to those flood-prone areas. Right. Now, one of the things which strikes me is that now you have the relief centers, government buildings, schools, places of religious worship, and so on. And the support is getting to those centers quite strongly now. Perhaps it took a few days, but that's expected. But now when these people start moving out and going back to their homes, they won't have the same level of support that they do in the centers. And because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who are going to go back, how challenging is it to continue to support these people, because they may be going back to village areas where the roads may have washed away. These may not be main roads. I think most of the main roads are taken care of, except for a few up country. But these are areas which may not be quite accessible. There are a lot of challenges. How do you see that playing out?
One very important thing, Niresh, is to also look at the support that the civil society has been responding to and supporting to all these communities, whether they are in the safety centers or even before the cyclone has reached Sri Lanka. The civil society has played a key role, a crucial role in supporting the community. So how do we reach them? It's through civil societies, the community, the people that are there that can support them in terms of the needs that they need when they return back home. IOM right now is working with DMC on supporting the mobility tracking assessment. So this will also look into what are the needs of the displaced population or the affected population when they are coming from safety centers or still at the safety centers, and then they're being moved from safety center to another safety center. What are their needs? Is it health? Is it education? Is it, on the different aspect of sectors, in order to provide the basic services? And then when they're coming from safety center to homes, which home are they going to? So, and what are the needs that they will need during the time that they are in their home? What do they need? Is it access to health? Is it additional shelter needs? Is it education, access to education for the children? Which school they should be going to? So those are important tracking tools that we need to look at to support those people that are moving from one place to another during this crisis, or post-impact of crisis.
Right. So it is a very complex exercise, isn't it? But there are global best practices in this, because disasters occur in many countries, and in some countries they occur much more frequently, such as the Philippines, where you hail from. Sri Lanka is in fact rather fortunate that we don't get so many natural disasters. Do you see those global best practices as, are they going to be applied here? Can we learn from those other countries and apply those lessons here?
That's a very good question, Niresh. Sri Lanka is doing good already in terms of, the early warning system. For example, a lot of during the warning for flooding, the networks are, from social media to TV to, to all aspect of communication. There were a lot of alerts. I was receiving them. I was seeing them everywhere. But what I would recommend and suggest that we need right now, and let this be incorporated as part of the recovery efforts that we're looking at, is preparedness. Preparedness at the ground level, at the community level, in order to strengthen the capacity of the local authorities, community volunteers, the people itself, on what they need to do when there is an alert. The e-warning system, if there is an alert for evacuation, how will you mobilize the community to move to a safety center? So I think disaster preparedness is very important to strengthen at the local level.
Right, because I think Sri Lankans are used to perhaps being too optimistic and thinking, oh, okay, my house has not flooded in many years, so it probably won't flood this time. I'll wait it out, and then when something of this magnitude hits, then they end up in deep trouble, and the entire area would be inundated, and then it's difficult for the first responders, the rescuers, to reach many of these areas. So it could take a couple of days. So it's important for local communities to have a lot of preparation in advance.
As I mentioned, and I go back to the question, a while ago, where you mentioned, like, what are the best practices? There are so many best practices that we can learn, whether it's from neighboring countries. We have India, we have Bangladesh, we have Philippines. We also have other countries, for example, the Caribbean, who are always struck with cyclones on a yearly basis, on how the community, how local authorities from the local level to region, to provincial level, up to the national level, look into the preparedness aspect. And I agree with you that I think this is not the time that we need to strengthen our efforts into preparedness. Let's start it first at the local level, and there's a lot of support that they're coming in. We have the UN, who is also supporting the government of Sri Lanka. We can provide that support in terms of preparedness and strengthening the capacity of community to immediately look into as first-line responders when there's areas that are cut off, or also on the preparedness in terms of capacity building.
Right, and I think we also need a culture change, because, as I said, people are very optimistic, and sometimes they are also rather pig-headed. They won't move from their homes. We at Newsfirst sometimes, over the last few days, we are sending out alert after alert to a particular area saying, move now, evacuate now. But then authorities on the ground keep contacting us and saying, people aren't moving. So, we keep repeating the calls, but, there are people who won't move. But in many other countries, the culture is such that when a warning comes, they do immediately evacuate, don't they?
Yes, they do. Maybe I'll give an example to my own country, the Philippines. A few days before a typhoon or cyclone happens, there is already a warning, an alert that says, okay, level 1. For those, schools should be closed. Those that are in areas where it's flooding, you're near the coastal road, please evacuate to a safety center. And then the local communities and authorities are empowered to mobilize the community to support them in their transportation from their home to the safety center. So there are a lot of best practices that we can look at and maybe contextualize it on, and adapting it to Sri Lanka model. And also the importance of information, how for Sri Lankans to also look into how important it is to look at saving lives instead of, waiting for the time when the flood water is high or there's already destruction and you just start to evacuate. And that's very dangerous.
Absolutely. And, many of my colleagues here at Newsfirst have been going out to these disaster areas, and they've put their own lives at risk, many of them going in boats, and they see entire families who should have evacuated, but they're now marooned in, on their rooftops and so on. So it's very dangerous for the rescuers as well. And generally in countries like ours, we don't have massive resources either to, we don't have 100 helicopters which are ready to go out there. We have a limited number. So as you mentioned, it's important for the local communities and the people to be more active, perhaps.
Yes, and this is, a lesson learned from all of us on this recent crisis, how important it is on the preparedness aspect, so that if future disasters, which I hope not, we are always prepared.
Right. And we need to take a short commercial break now. I am in conversation with Kristin Parco, who is the Chief of Mission for IOM in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
අපේම මිනිසුන් වෙනුවෙන් අපි මනුෂ්‍යත්වයේ දෑත් දිගු කරමු. සිරස ශක්ති සහන යාත්‍රා.
සහල්
පරිප්පු
සොයමිට්
ටින්මාලු
නූඩල්ස්
බිස්කට්
ඔබට හැකි පමණ ගෙනවිත් බාර දෙන්න.
භාණ්ඩ එකතු කිරීමේ මධ්‍යස්ථාන.
කොළඹ 2 සිරස මාධ්‍යශාලයේ මූලස්ථානය.
දෙපානම විකාශන මධ්‍යස්ථානය.
මහනුවර කැන්ඩි සිටි සෙන්ටර් පරිශ්‍රය.
ගාල්ල කහදුව වත්ත මන්සන්ධියේ සහන යාත්‍රා මෙහෙයුම් මැදිරිය. සිරස ශක්ති සහන යාත්‍රා.
එන්න විපතට පත් ජීවිත වෙත සහනයක් වන්නට.
අපත් සමග එකතු වන්න. සිරස ශක්ති සහන යාත්‍රා ශනික ඇමතුම් අංකය 076යි 55යි 25යි 03.
දැන් කියන්නේ හරියට නිකන් කෙල්ල එල්ලුණා නෙමෙයි අපි ගිහලා කෙල්ල වෙල්ලුවා වගේ කතාවක්.
උඹ මොකා වුණත් මං එන වික්මන්ටම ඔබ හොයාගෙන.
උඹේ හැම චලනයක්ම දන්න මට නෙමෙයි උඹ බොරු කරන්න හදන්නේ මයි පුතේ.
නෑ සර් මම කියන්නේ දැන් අපේ පවුලේ නම්බුව ගැන හිතුවාම නෑ අයිසේ ඌඩට දාන්න කන්නේ එළියට. ඔයාගම මල්ලිකනේ. මාර පිස්සෙක්නේ.
මාගේ දැස දෙස බලනු.
මේ වගේ වයසට මෙහෙම ඉන්නවා කියන්නේ මරු.
මෙහෙම ඔයාට තුරුල්ලලා ඉද්දියාය මට මේ ලෝකෙ මොන ප්‍රශ්න ආවත් මට කිසිම බයක් නෑ.
මේ වෙච්ච කිසි දෙයක් සහිලට ආරංචි වෙන්න දෙන්න.
අද රාත්‍රී 8ට
සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන් 2025 ජුනි මාස 29 වනදා වැඩ ආරම්භ කළ තාබෝ එම්බකී පුස්තකාලය 2025 නොවැම්බර් මාස 20 වනදා දරුවන්ගේ අයිතියට පත් කළ වගයි.
ගම්මැද්ද අලුත් බලාපොරොත්තුවක්.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I am with Kristin Parco, who is the Chief of Mission of the IOM for Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Now, Kristin, we briefly touched on the vulnerable communities, and this is something which around the world there is more of a focus now on vulnerable communities or vulnerable segments of a community, but it's actually the majority of the people, isn't it? You have the children, you have infants, you have women, you have pregnant mothers, and you also have the elderly and perhaps differently abled as well. So that's a lot of people who need special care. So how does IOM deal with this, and how do you encourage local authorities and governments to deal with this?
In many crises, people are affected differently because it also depends on their needs. Looking at the tailored needs, as you have already pointed out, it's pregnant women, the elderly, the young children, the infants, also the people living with disability and the people that are living with chronic medical condition. So IOM is working very closely with local authorities, with, as I've mentioned, with civil societies, in looking at understanding who are the most at risk in that community, or that are in safety centers or in those areas, so that we will be able to reach and provide them the needs, their tailored needs. For us, one simple principle: nobody should be left behind.
So, Kristin, talking about the vulnerable communities, now in Sri Lanka we have a large number of people who require medication. We have a lot of people who have diabetes, and then you have the high blood pressure people and so on. And of course, while they are in the relief centers, perhaps they are getting their medication, but when they go back to their homes, it may be very challenging. The pharmacy in the neighborhood may not be there anymore. And the roads may be difficult to navigate. How do you deal with all of that? It's quite a challenge, isn't it?
It is a challenge, given that if we look at the current situation where roads are either not cleared yet, or bridges are still having issues, or railroad. The most important right now, and I have seen this in many of the disaster areas that I have worked with in different countries, is how the health workers from the hospital facilities or from the health center would access those people that are most vulnerable. For example, midwife would visit the homes of pregnant women, or you can have a mobile clinic set up to move from one area to another to be able to provide those basic health services to the most vulnerable. So those are, instead of the people coming to healthcare facility, let the healthcare system reach to the people that are in the community.
Right. Now, very often, Kristin, when a disaster happens, there is a rush of, search and rescue, and, for a few days or a week or so, there's a lot of activity. But then sometimes it tends to die down a little bit. Now, I saw an article where you have said that we are entering a critical phase of the entire operation. What did you mean by that? How, when you say a critical phase, how do you categorize that?
For disasters, the first week and the first 3 months are very critical. It's focused on life-saving when it comes to the most vulnerable population, access to their immediate needs, whether it's food, whether it's shelter, non-food items, shelter. Right now, the first week, people have been evacuated into safety centers. Now we need to look into what are the needs of those people that are affected in those safety shelters, specifically, again, as we have discussed, on pregnant women, on elderly, on children, people with disability, people living with medical condition. How can they access those essential support on their needs? So I think for me, what is very important, as what IOM has been doing globally, is that support to health treatment or access to treatment. How can we support, and mobilize healthcare workers to come to safety centers and provide those health access? We, over the past few days, IOM has been supporting non-food items, shelter items, water to those safety centers. And then last but not the least is working with partners, with civil society partners, on the continued support for those areas that are very difficult to access.
Right. Now, cyclones, or you might call them hurricanes in some areas, or typhoons, you do get a lot of them, and more, I think, with climate change and so on. So they're not unusual, but the impact of each is perhaps somewhat different. And when you look at this particular cyclone and the way it hit Sri Lanka, are there lessons to be learned for the global community from this particular cyclone? And of course, the reaction to it by the communities, by the government, and by the international community?
I think a lot, globally, we're talking already a lot about the impacts of climate change. And specifically what we are advocating and what we're talking on, globally as IOM on, is on the impact of climate change to human mobility. One big example right now is, the cyclone that is happening in Sri Lanka. While disaster not just affect building, it affects people that are being displaced because of, the impact of in the environment, in the climate aspect of, of the lives of the people. So again, I go back to what we have been discussing, over the past few minutes on the preparedness and how human mobility, or the mobility aspect on the climate change, should be incorporated as part of the National Adaptation Plan. So now we're talking from the disaster, now we're moving towards development discussion. So if the changes in the climate affect the mobility of people, then the National Adaptation Plan, for example, here in Sri Lanka, we should also look into how human mobility should be placed into as part of the plan and as part of that framework.
Right. Now, IOM deals with many different challenges. Disasters are just one of them. You deal with migration. Migration is part of the name of your organization, and migration comes in different forms. And then you have the impact, the impacts of migration. So in Sri Lanka, we have seen a lot of our young people migrating out, sometimes permanently, sometimes for many years, and then they come back due to economic requirements. And we also see generally our population is aging very fast. So this has created a lot of elderly, a huge elderly segment, and where the grown-up children may be in the Middle East or somewhere else, so they're not immediately there to support the parents or the grandparents and so on. How do you see this playing out, especially in the future, because our populations are not getting younger? I mean, this is worldwide, but in Sri Lanka in particular.
Well, thank you very much. As you have mentioned, not just in Sri Lanka, but there are many countries that we're seeing as an aging population, and many of, for example, let's talk about Sri Lanka. As you pointed out clearly, the younger population are migrating, whether it's for education, for job opportunities, or reunification with their family members that have already been residing in another country. Just one big example of the elderly gentleman I met this morning on a camp safety center that I visited. He mentioned to me that he's alone, that his children are no longer with him, and that he doesn't know what he will do when he returns back home because he has some issues with his health. So this is one story of an elderly being left alone without no one to take care of him. So when it comes to migration, I have mentioned that the third aspect of what we do is looking at facilitating pathways for regular migration. So it's not just looking at what are the other solutions that we can address in terms of migration challenges, specifically for families left behind, but looking into the economic stability of the country. How can we also support as United Nations, as a UN, to create more job opportunities for people or the youth specifically, so that they don't need to look into a desperate decision to migrate because there's no opportunities for job or employment or livelihood in the country. And if we do that, then the elderly will not be left alone at their home taking care of themselves. Second, we also need to look at skills development for the youth. What kind of skills that we can offer that they can be competitive in the growing needs in terms of digital area that many countries are looking at. And this also reflects into some private companies are now asking for work from home, even if you are connected to another country. And that would also support in terms of, being there for the elderly and support the needs of the elderly. The third one is looking at an approach in terms of how can we improve better the elderly care or elderly homes, where because the elderly home is not just a support to cater to the needs, but also as a term of a social interaction for the elderly to belong in a community, a sense of community where they are interacting with their fellow friends or age. So I think those are the areas that I think we should be looking at in the future as part of like rebuilding back better, that we should be thinking as well that migration is not just a push factor that people have to look into in terms of the link to the aging population, where the youth are moving to another country and leaving families left behind, but looking at the stability of the economy, that we can be able to have the youth specifically, or the people, to stay home rather than finding other opportunities in
so
other
it's nice to know that there are models, there are options,
Yes.
And it's not just going to be, you know, Sri Lanka's population aging and elderly people like the gentleman you met this morning having no options at all, but there are options, and we just need to sort of learn and adopt those. Right. And we are almost out of time, Kristin, but my final question would be from the IOM, what is your message to Sri Lankans who have been affected? What's your message in the short term, and what's your message in the long term, in terms of how they can pick up their lives and the assistance that will be coming their way, and some hope for the future?
Thank you. IOM is here to support you. You are not alone. And I just wanted to say that our main priority is to save lives and to make sure that your access to basic needs are met. We will be working together with our local counterparts, such as the civil societies, the local authorities, as well as the national government, in ensuring that your needs are met during this very critical time. Also, our work does not end just here during emergency, but our work continues as we move forward to building back better. So we will be here until the recovery, rehabilitation, up to the development of Sri Lanka again. So thank you very much, Niraj.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And I know that your team, the IOM team in Colombo, and the other UN agency teams have been working round the clock for the past week or so. So thank you very much for that. Quite unheralded behind the scenes sometimes, but also going out into these affected areas, into danger, and doing so much wonderful work. So thank you very much for that.
And thank you for this opportunity.
And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us and enlightening our viewers this evening. And thank you to you at home. We've been watching the interview with Kristin Parco, who is the Chief of Mission of the IOM for Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.